Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Africa News with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Nigeria's military faces flagging morale and the threat of mutiny amongst troops battling Boko Haram fighters who've killed thousands in their 5-year insurgency. Soldiers say they're just not equipped to face the militants. Also, the death toll of West Africa's Ebola epidemic surges to above 1,200, with dozens more killed in just 3 days. Meanwhile, Liberia reports it's found 17 missing patients whose escape from a clinic sparked panic over the weekend. And after decades away, the first 500 of tens of thousands of Angolan refugees living in Democratic Republic of Congo start their long journey back to their homeland. Our correspondents were there to see them off. Many have spent decades in exile. First up, as Nigeria struggles to gain the upper hand against Boko Haram insurgents, it's also battling flagging military morale. Dozens of soldiers fighting in the northeast have reportedly refused to deploy because they feel their lives are being thrown away as they lack the resources needed to properly take the militants on. The Defence Ministry has denied reports that soldiers are refusing to fight, but said an investigation would be launched. For more on this, we're joined by Mania Dan Ali. He's the editor-in-chief of the Daily Trust newspaper in Abuja. Mania, thanks very much for speaking to us. Now, what more can you tell us about this alleged mutiny?
Well, the reports coming out of Maiduguri in northeastern Nigeria are suggesting something that is along the pattern of events in the last several weeks. Just last week, the wives of some of the military officials, they staged a protest because they didn't want their husbands to be sent to an operation against the Boko Haram. And they are pretty much saying what the soldier in this current report is said to have claimed. That is, there isn't enough and relevant arms and ammunition for them to face the militants, that is the Boko Haram insurgents.
Now, so soldiers are saying they're being sent out to die. Is this an exaggeration, or is the military really not up to the job?
Well, actually, the Nigerian military should be up to the job. Recall that they were the ones who essentially fought against the rebels in Sierra Leone, in Liberia as well. And they have the reputation of being able to give a good account of themselves, where they have all the necessary wherewithal to do what soldiers do. So essentially what the soldiers here are saying is that they are put in the line of fire where the Boko Haram seem to have more superior firepower. They have machine guns, they have anti-tank weapons and what have you. And the Nigerian soldiers are claiming that all they are sent out to face this is with AK-47s.
Thanks very much. Mania Dan Ali there, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Trust newspaper in Abuja. In other news, in Liberia, 17 missing Ebola patients who went on the run after their clinic was attacked over the weekend have been found. Their escape from a medical facility in Monrovia sparked a panic manhunt across the capital. Tensions are mounting amongst infected communities in Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea, the countries worst hit by the deadly virus. The death tolls mounted to 1,229 after the illness killed 84 people in just 3 days. Many of the victims have been medical staff battling to save the lives of others.
Placed in a disinfected coffin, Modupe Cole is buried without ceremony far away from his loved ones. An eminent doctor in Freetown's largest hospital, he died less than 2 weeks after being exposed to the Ebola virus.
When we had this outbreak, some patients were moving all over the country. He was at Freetown managing patients, and it was hard for him to explain how he contracted the disease.
In the east of Sierra Leone, in Kenema, the epicenter of the world's worst ever outbreak of Ebola, another doctor is mourned. Umar Khan is believed to have saved dozens of sufferers before himself falling victim. Faced with an outbreak of such a deadly virus, the loss of doctors and nurses willing to put themselves in harm's way for the good of others is a double blow.
15 of our health workers from this case management center have passed away. When somebody dies of Ebola, that time the virus is very virulent. And in that case, we have to handle that corpse very well in order not for us to be infected.
Ebola has killed at least 1,145 people in West Africa since the start of the year, and Sierra Leone's quarantine towns of Kenema and Kailahun account for the lion's share of the country's near 800 cases. Around 1 million people in the 2 quarantine districts are unable to come and go without government permission. But regional authorities claim they are learning lessons and working to reduce the infection rates.
We train them every 2 weeks. We are not doing refresher training every 2 weeks. We make sure no mistake is made there.
A total of 32 nurses have died from the Ebola virus in Sierra Leone while performing their duties over the last 3 months. And others continue to risk their lives for the sake of the few who will survive it and be given a clean bill of health.
The president of Central African Republic's National Transitional Councils called for a delay in naming a new cabinet for the troubled nation. Alexandre Ferdinand Gengende is worried that the recent choice of Mahamat Kamoun as prime minister stirred up further tensions amongst parties to a ceasefire deal signed in Brazzaville in July. Representatives for warring Seleka rebels and Christian militia have joined Gende for talks there on a way forward out of crippling violence in Central African Republic. Meanwhile, in New York, a UN Security Council meeting is underway ahead of the arrival of a peacekeeping mission next month. Lorena Gallo brings us the latest.
Today is the final briefing to the Security Council by the Special Representative Babacar Gaye, a Senegalese general who's been advising the Secretary General of the UN on the special force MINUSCA. And the goal today is for him to inform the Security Council before the force is set to be deployed in September, on September 15th, to inform them of the updates on training of the military personnel that's been recruited and their preparation and how ready they are to be deployed. The forces, because the force was created just 3 months ago following Security Council Resolution 2149, and because it's such a rapid response force, it's been apparently difficult so far to assemble the full number of participating soldiers. The force is authorized to provide 10,000 military personnel and 1,800 police officers, plus 20 corrections officers from various participating countries, which are France, Benin, Burkina Faso, Indonesia, Mali, Morocco, and Senegal. Their mandate on the ground will be to protect civilians and UN personnel, to support the political transition process, and to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian aid on the ground where it's needed.
Lorena Gallo there for us in New York. Now, the first group of tens of thousands of Angolans living in Democratic Republic of Congo set out to return to their homeland today. 500 began their return from exile by train, many heading back to Angola after having spent decades away. Our correspondents were there to see them off.
Soon, a new start for these 500 refugees. Most of them have never seen their home country, Angola, torn apart by civil war for many years.
I have 3 little suitcases and a handbag.
After 25 years of exile, Eli and his family have taken the minimum for this long-awaited trip back.
I'm not afraid, because I'm going back home. For me, it's a big day today, as I'm going back to my home country, the country where I was born. I'm so happy I don't know how to put it in words. I'm moved. I thank the Lord.
One after the other, these refugees are about to leave their Congolese life behind, a decision that was not easy to take.
They got married here, their children were born here, they had a life here. But the fact that it was actually their last chance to go back to Angola with the assistance of the UNHCR and the authorities has helped convince them. Because they actually want to go back to Angola. So many are saying that now the time has come. It's time to go back.
Leaving without coming back. For Clara Maria, it's another heartbreaking moment. This nurse arrived in Kinshasa 40 years ago. She spent many years waiting for this moment.
I've always longed for my country. Every time I think about it, tears come to my eyes. I'll never go into exile again, never. I'll never flee again.
After 7 years, this train is specially leaving for these 500 Angolans. Within the next weeks, 29,000 will take the same route.
That report by Leah Lisa Westerhoff and Mehdi Medeb. Well, that wraps up African News for me. Stay with us, though. More news and headlines coming up from around the world.